Okay, so welcome to episode 4 of A Matter of Perspective. I have a guest I'm excited to get on here, Christian Silva, and I'm just going to invite him to come on right now. How you doing, Christian?
Great. How you doing, Bill?
Good. Glad to have you on. I know we had some dialogue, and last week or a week before, I was talking about the guest I was excited to have on. Well, this is Christian. Christian and I have a lot in common, but he has 2 kids. And I'll let him kind of introduce himself, what he does, and kind of why he's here. So, Christian, take it away.
Yeah. No, thanks, Bill. Very, very glad to be here with you. I think, let me just start by saying I think what you're doing is amazing. A family friend actually introduced me to you. She saw your initial podcast, and she knows, my passion for helping families with disabilities, and she knows my personal situation. And, as soon as I heard you speak, I said, I have to connect with this person. I think what you're doing, can be really big. I think there's a lot of people out there who need to connect with other people like us. And so I think what you're doing is great. So I'm really happy to be a part of this.
Appreciate that.
So yeah, kudos to you.
Well, it's not me, right? I got to interrupt. It's not me, right? I had a calling to do this. I didn't want to do this, but I share your view in that I think there's a need for something like this. People learn by storytelling, and I'm very humbled that people like yourself actually like seeing that value. And for you to come on here, Christian, takes a lot of courage, and I can't, from the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate it.
Yeah. No. Like I said, I appreciate that. And, I always do everything from the heart. So I recognize when others do things from the heart. So I know this is with good intention. So, again, very happy to be here. So.
Great. So tell us a little about yourself.
Yeah. So, let's see. So I'm 49, the big, right before 50, getting ready for my 50s mentally. I think that's what 49 is. You kind of get ready for your 50s, right? Mentally.
Yeah, it's prep.
So yeah, exactly. Get ready for the next decade of life. So I've been out in Connecticut. I'm in central Connecticut, outside Hartford. I've been here for about 22 years. I originally grew up in southeastern Mass. My family's from Westport, Mass. Not too far from you, so I have a lot of family and friends still down there. Still kind of consider it home, to be honest, but I love it out here in Connecticut. I came out here for work. I have my background. I have my master's degree in exercise science. I'm very passionate about exercise. That's kind of my calling. Came out here with my my girlfriend at the time, who became my wife, and we raised a family out here, and worked for a fitness company that was down in southeastern Mass. That's actually where my ex-wife and I had met. Mm-hmm. And whatever, they moved us out here, and this has become home, and we raised a beautiful family, and I'm still here. So that's
how many kids do you have?
So I have 2 children. I have a child. My oldest is 21. His name's Nathan, great young man. And I also have a 16-year-old, my son Ryan. He's my child with special needs.
So, all right. So speaking of that, and that's funny because Alex is 16 as well. So that's another thing we have in common. So tell us a little bit about Ryan, and just tell us a little bit about him.
Yeah. So Ryan has really 3 main diagnoses. He has cerebral palsy. That's very limiting for him. He is wheelchair bound. No fine motor skills, very limited in gross motor skills. He's actually diminished over time.
Is that part of the condition?
Yeah, like I said, he. I'll talk a little bit about that because I know we're gonna segue to some personal, sort of my personal experience with everything. But yeah, he has cerebral palsy. He's visually impaired, so he's legally blind. He can't really see beyond, you know, too far in front of his face, and even that's really fuzzy for him. And he also has epilepsy, so you know, we've had that under control. Well, as under control as we can. I know you know about that. So
Yep.
you know, he does have seizures, but yeah, so he's 100% dependent on care between nursing. He does qualify for nursing, which we're fortunate that it's covered through the state, a special program we have out in here, Connecticut. And then, you know, so between nursing, his mother, and myself, we take care of him. So,
Yep. Yeah, not all states, I think they call it the home and community-based waiver, something like that. Not all states have that. Yeah, I know Massachusetts, where, you know, it's things change after they turn 18, but before that, it's quite a challenge to get any type of aid like that. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And for people listening on the call, the program out here, there's a waiting list, but it's called the Katie Beckett waiver. That's the program here in Connecticut, and, you know, definitely helped us a lot. So,
Yeah, we'll put that in the show notes, so for sure.
yeah.
Yep. Yep. So take me back when Ryan was born and the diagnosis, and kind of talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know one of the reasons you wanted to, you know, have me on the show, and I think this is something that, you know, I can really, I think people can identify with. I mentioned to you, in addition to my fitness business, and part of that is I do motivational speaking, because I actually talk a lot about my experience with my son, because for me, with emotional processing, exercise has always been really a big part of that for me. I know people deal with their emotions in different ways, but that's kind of my tie-in to, you know, what I do for a career. So, you know, but just to go back to when Ryan was born, you know, like a lot of parents, we had one child. We wanted a, you know, a second child, so, you know, someone he could play with, and
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, all realistic stuff. And we were blessed. My ex-wife was pregnant. I guess Nathan was probably about 4. And you know, I think like a lot of dads, I remember when Ryan was born, we were trying to pick out names, and I remember I wanted the name Marcus for Ryan. I'm a football guy, so I was just like, you know, I want my son to play football and be rugged, you know. And I don't know, Marcus was kind of a football name. I just thought it'd be cool. And my
Yeah.
ex was like, absolutely not. We're not doing that. We're gonna go with Ryan. So I'm like, all right. Um, well, maybe he could take my grandfather's middle name, you know, Ryan Joseph. He'll be R.J. Silva. You know, that's like
Oh,
a
there you
football
go.
name.
Thinking.
You
Yeah.
know, like these are the things that's going through your head. You know, when you have a child, like this is what you're thinking,
Yep.
and you know, you're thinking about them getting older, and cars, and, you know, girlfriends, and, you know, maybe getting married someday, and a career,
Yeah.
and college, and, you know, these are all the things like you're so excited for, you know, and
Yeah. You're setting those expectations early, and yeah, thinking
yeah,
ahead.
yeah. Yeah, and that's a beautiful thing, and I think every parent should do that. And, you know, I guess Ryan had a very healthy delivery. You know, everything was normal. He performed well in his APGAR. Ironically, Nathan was the one, he had to spend a week in ICU. He had a very difficult delivery, where the cord was wrapped around his neck when he was delivered. So he was very not in a good place when he was born. So, but
Wow.
Ryan was, you know, perfect birth. You know, I was there for both my kids coming into this world, and, you know, he was doing great. So
It's good.
yeah, so we have a family of 4 now, and, you know, I would say the first sign of trouble came about 6 months in. Um, you know, like I said, there was nothing abnormal about the delivery. No oxygen deprivation. A lot of people think of CP as that's, you know, the cause.
Right.
But, you know, there was nothing on the radar. And I'd say 6 months in, he wasn't tracking at the optometrist. You know, he wasn't tracking very well. And the optometrist picked up on that right away. And, you know, he did some examinations, and he saw that my son had optic nerve hypoplasia. He had small optic nerves.
Hmm.
So he was going to be visually impaired. And, you know, as a
Now, was
parent,
that part of a normal checkup? Did he go to the doctor and then
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it was just like normal checkups. And, you know, like I said, you're assuming everything's okay. And then this is kind of what happens, right? It just, the appointments you just keep getting a lot of bad news. It's like, oh, this was like the first thing,
Right.
you know, and 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 I want to mention this too, because I'll talk about the progressions, but I just want to acknowledge the moms out there because, as dads, I don't know that we appreciate the effect that these things have on our women. Obviously as dads we're concerned, but I really have to give my ex a lot of credit because she was very concerned right from the get-go. She saw this as a serious thing, and it wasn't just her worrying. And I'll talk about my reaction to it because I think sometimes dads, we may react a little differently.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a generalization, but moms really are in tune with this stuff, and she knew something was up. So I would say that was the first cause for concern. I would say the second one was, I don't know if we met with a physiatrist or I can't remember, maybe it was a neurologist. Um, I don't know if they did like an MRI on his brain, but they had saw some abnormal development in his brain, and now they started talking about this thing called cerebral palsy.
Mm.
And because of my background, I knew about cerebral palsy, and you know, who expects this stuff? I'm like, it was interesting because one of my first training clients actually had cerebral palsy, and he was pretty high functioning, but he was limited.
Yep.
So I knew about it, but it just wasn't. I was like, wow, like this isn't what I was expecting.
Right. Right. It kind of
Obviously,
it kind of hits you. It takes your breath away. Yeah, it kind of
oh,
takes your breath away.
absolutely, absolutely. I guess we had some subsequent appointments, and I can't remember all the details in them, but just each appointment, it kept getting progressively worse, Bill. It was just like more and more and more. And like I said, my ex was very in tune with the situation. I would say for me as a dad, and this is where I want to talk a little bit about emotional progression, which I think is really, one of the key things we want to talk about today.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I was kind of like in shock. Like I just like I don't know if you want to call it like numb. Like I didn't know how I felt about it. I was just
Yep.
like, like I knew I loved my son and but I'm just like, I don't know. I just didn't know.
So
I had to,
that word, you hear this word surreal a lot, and that's what
yeah,
I kind of that's how I felt when Alex is you're almost looking down at your own self saying, is this really happening?
yeah. It's exactly because I think we all, and this is something I've learned over the last 20 years, especially the last 15, 16 for sure. We all think our life's going a certain direction, and it can change like that. There's no question.
Amen.
And that's exactly what happened. And so like I said, I want to give a credit to my ex. She recognized it early on. She was more accepting. Um, she was just dialed in like right from day one. She was awesome. She really
That's that
was.
maternal instinct kicking in. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, I guess like I said, I was kind of numb. I just felt numb for a while. I want to say, you know, I don't know if it was like a 6 to 8 month period. I'm not really sure. Like I said, I was just maybe going through the motions a little bit. I just didn't. I had to wrap my head around it. Now, the one of the things that I will say, in that, I've always been emotionally strong.
Mm-hmm.
I've through my training and through my previous life experiences, I had learned about the progressions of our emotions. And, I think this is something really, really important to understand. And I'll tell you about my story. I remember it was funny. I first learned about emotional progression prior to getting married. My ex and I had done a workshop. It was one of those John Gray workshops,
Mm-hmm.
which is John Gray. If you don't recognize the name, he was the one that did, men are from Mars, women are from Venus.
Yep. Yep.
And I was one of these like self-help junkie guys. I used to read a lot of this stuff, and I always wanted to be the best at this, and best at, or not be the best, but be my best at,
Yep. The best you could be. Yep.
best I can be in relationships and work and goal setting, all that stuff. So I really took this stuff seriously, and I remember one of the things that was in the book, and I may be butchering it a little bit, but generally speaking, this is kind of my understanding of how your emotions progress, and it really goes from fear, anger, sadness, and then love. And I kind of equate the shock, the numbness, sort of with fear, maybe a little bit. Maybe there's a little bit of fear, and can I deal with this? Is this something? How am I going to support my family? That was something my ex, she wasn't able to work. We didn't plan on that. So there's financial concerns and
Yep.
all these things as a dad. And so anyway, I'm kind of going through this period of being, kind of in shock a little bit. And I knew I had to get to a point where I had to work myself through the emotions. Like I knew that. And you just never know like when it's going to come, because this
Right.
is a big thing. This is like, this is my son. This is like, this is my son. This
This
is
is
my
a
blood.
life-changing thing that is going to be with you for the rest of your life. So you got to try to go
Yeah.
onward and upward, right?
Yep, absolutely. So I remember I was in the gym one day, and it's funny. Usually when I do my motivational speaking, I have a hat, and I always have my hat on forward, and I have like my Bruins cap on, and
There
and
you go.
I kind of and I always remember the only way to equate it is I remember this cheesy movie from the '80s. I think it was called Over the Top with Sylvester Stallone. I don't know if you remember that movie, but he's an arm wrestler, and
Yep.
he's going to like the world championships in Vegas or something like that. I don't quite remember the whole story, but I always remember him with that hat, and he would say, when he would arm wrestle, he'd be like, I turn the hat around, and I become like a machine, and that was kind of me, and
Yep.
and I'm a very emotive person, and I was in the gym one day, and I remember it so well, Bill. I was in the gym, and I put my hat on backwards, and I was just like, ooh, man, I felt rage. I felt anger. I felt rage, and I packed all this weight on the squat rack, and I squatted, over 400 pounds without spot. I could have got really hurt because that was pretty
Yep.
heavy weight for me at the time. And I did a set, and I go over and I'd be hyperventilating and just like rage, just like such anger and
Getting it out.
how could this happen to my son? And I knew it, and I knew I had to go through it, and I just felt it. I went back, I did another set, and then maybe I went to the leg press and I just threw out a bunch of weight there. And I was just, people around me would have thought I was a maniac. And I didn't care. I did not care. I don't care what you thought of me. I don't care. You thought I was a raving lunatic. I didn't care. I needed to go through my tantrum, my rage, my anger. I had to get it out. And for me, that was through exercise. That's how I did it. And that's what I needed, and I just had to get through it. So anyway,
So some people don't do that, right? Some people keep that bottled up inside of them,
yeah,
and that can lead them down a path that can be self-destructive. So that's good that you found that outlet, at least to express that emotion.
yeah, no, and like I said, I in my seminars and when I do my public speaking, I talk about movement is a great way to let out your rage, and it's kind of like that fight or flight thing. When you have stress, what are you going to do? And in today's society, we kind of internalize this stuff, and I've learned to get that out through exercise. That's why exercise has been so powerful for me. But there's other ways to deal with that, and some people. It's funny. Like I was on a hike a few months ago, and this girl was studying for her uh, I don't know, for SATs, and her mom brought her to the lake. We were hiking, and we stopped at the lake, and she was like having a screaming session. She let her daughter like scream out to the the lake, and like she was like screaming. She's like, "Get it out, get it out, get it out!"
That's
Like
awesome.
there's different ways to do it.
Sure.
Mine has always been physical, which I kind of think is the natural way to do it. And from a science perspective, hormonally there's a lot of good things that go on, and emotionally there's a lot of good things that go on. But you've got to get through that anger. You have to work through it, and um, I know I needed that because I knew other parents who weren't able to get through that and might have left the situation and didn't get to where I'm at now, which I'm going to talk about. But this is where it's so important to get through our emotions, and this is how it happened for me.
That's great. That's good
Yeah.
that you
So
found that. Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, so I remember leaving the gym. The gym was in the basement. I remember walking up the stairs and getting in my car, and I remember being in my car and just after I just beat the crap out of my body, just feeling sad, Bill. I was just like, oh my gosh, I was so sad. And, I was sad that my son was never going to, you know, have a normal school experience. My son was never going to be able to play sports. I was going to be able to take my son to games. You know, all these things that are going through my head. I was just sad, I was just really sad. And I was sad that my ex and I weren't going to be able to have the life that we probably expected. I was sad for her, for Ryan's brother. And, most of all, I was sad for him, I mean, the heck with
Yeah.
me. What about him? He had to go through all this. I just felt so bad that he had to go through this. And that's really where my sadness went to, was him. It really wasn't so much about me. It was about him. And, I went home. It was about a 10-minute ride, and I was just very quiet, radio off, just got home. And I remember my ex was in the kitchen, and, we had a really good relationship at that time. We talked a lot, and I said, hey, babe, I got to talk to you. And, she stopped what she was doing. She was like washing dishes in the sink. She's like, yeah, Christian, what's up? And I said, I'm just having a hard time with this. This is really, 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 really tough on me. I'm really sad about this. I'm having a hard time with it. And, she was great. And she talked with me. She was very supportive. She didn't know if I was like thinking about leaving. I'm like, no, it's nothing like that.
Right.
I'm going through an emotional thing right now. And I just need you to know where I'm at. That's all. Okay. And everything's gonna be okay. Just, I just need you to know where I'm at. Because I had been kind of quiet about it, and she was locked in right away. I just wasn't. I had to work through the emotions. So anyway, through the love and support of my family and just kind of working through it. I don't remember the timeline, but man, it's like I said, it's fear, anger, sadness, and love.
And the thing is, Christian, is that, see, you looked at it from perspective of because of the business you were in, you kind of knew those levels of emotions, and even though you were going through it, you knew you had to go through it. You knew you had to deal with it, even though maybe you didn't know at the time, how that would come out. But some people get locked in that sadness, and my heart breaks, and I see it for other special needs parents where, they almost have like PTSD and depression, and what you're saying, the advice of get out and move, and because that releases dopamine, and that can just change you. I think that's some great advice there to people.
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, even like with inner city kids, I remember years ago, I learned, a lot of these kids who deal with a lot of tough stuff, in the cities and abuse and all that. They have these kickboxing and boxing programs so these kids can get out their anger and release. And, a lot of kids that are involved in sports, and sports are such an outlet for them, and they feel so good, and they don't even know why. And there's a hormonal effect. Yeah, the dopamine, the testosterone for men, and, just a lot of growth hormone. There's just a lot of good hormones that we need in our bodies to make us feel good. And it's huge. And you mentioned about the sadness, like people get stuck in sadness, but I really, really think, and I think there's a lot of fear. I think there's a lot of fear in our society. I think there's a lot of fear in our special needs families that, I'm not an expert in, grief and all that. I think, you can kind of go back and forth within your emotions, but I know the rage and the anger, you got to work through that stuff, and it's healthy and it's good. And it's, maybe it's not perceived in our society as being acceptable, but it's acceptable to me because I'm a happy person, and I know what I needed to do to get there. And I hope this on some level helps someone out there, because, it's that important.
I'll add one more in there, and that's guilt. I went through a guilt phase with Alex because when I was younger, I may have partaken some, things I shouldn't have. And I just had extreme guilt. Like, wow, did he get that from me? And I actually sat down with his neurologist one day. Beth was out with Al getting his weight done. And I said, hey, doc, listen. And he laughed. He's like, no, it has nothing to do with it. I'm like, but I did. I felt guilty. Did he get that from me? So.
Yeah, no. I think I'm really glad you brought that up, because I mean, I think, we all have that. I remember my son was conceived. I had an injury, like in my mind, I'm like, was there something in me? Right. I also trained my ex-wife for, her pregnancies, but I've trained a lot of women. I have prenatal training. So I was like, maybe was it the exercise? Because, that's one of the concerns with exercise is you can cut off,
Oxygen or,
oxygen to the fetus. So,
yeah,
there are a lot of things going through my head, but, I think what you realize is that you'll never know. It's more in, what's the old adage? I forgot who said it, but, 10% of life is what happens to us, and 90% is how you react to it.
that's
And,
amen.
it's, I mean, what more can you say? And
Yep.
so, we can beat ourselves up. But, the last emotion that I really want to talk about is, you know, going through these emotions, I finally got to love. It was the fear, the anger, the sadness, and the love. And man, I love my son. Like,
That's
I
good.
love him. I love him to death. I mean, I have just this huge love affair with my son. Like, it's just, man, it's like everybody's like, wow, Christian, like your son just lights up when you're around. It's like, because I love him. It's
Yep.
like I would give the world to this kid. Like, he is everything. I mean, both my boys. When
Yep.
when you have a special needs child, they need a little bit more. You get it,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
it's so I made it a focus of mine to always include him in as many things as we could. We didn't. I didn't want to be a family that was limited because of our special needs child. We tried to do as much as we could traveling. Um, you know, that was just my MO. I felt like he needs to be part of the family. We got to do things together. I mean, of course, there's going to be some limitations.
right.
But that was my thing, and you know, um,
It,
it's great. So when you get there, it's just awesome. It's awesome, awesome,
it
awesome, and I just
is.
hope people out there can get there because when you get to that love state, man, it's the best.
Yeah, and it helps you deal with the life, the everyday things, and it is, that sadness to me can last a long time, like a lot of newness, like for Alex, for his condition, there's triggers for his seizures. So
Yeah.
like when he had his seizure just now, that could have been fatigue because he looked tired coming from school.
Hmm.
So it could have been fatigue, and he's on his iPad kind of keeping busy. So that's what it could be. Big loud noises,
Yeah.
like birthday parties, right? So when we first started with Alex, oh, let's go to, our cousin's birthday party. It's like, today's not a good day,
Yeah. Yeah.
because you could just see it in his eyes. And
Mhm.
so that takes, there's going to be episodes just centered around that. But that takes some getting used to, it really
Absolutely.
does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a great point, and I probably should stress too that this isn't like a one-time thing where you have to work through your emotions. Like, in the last 16 years, there's been a lot of little things that have triggered emotions, and it maybe like the first one was kind of like the biggest one for me,
Right.
but you got to kind of, you know, I mean, my son spent. I'm sure you've had this, where your son spends. What was it 2 years ago? My son spent 45 days in the hospital, and
Yep.
of course there's some emotions in that, but you still have to practice. You have to develop strategies to work through your emotions because, let's be honest, if we're not at our best, we can't be at our best for our kids.
That I love that saying. I phrase it in a different way, but it is the same thing. And our motto is if Alex is smiling, we're smiling. Right.
Yeah, you remember? Yeah, I love that.
But it's the
Yeah.
same type of thing. Now, how because life does go on, right? And this, there'll be future episodes where we talk about this, but just from your perspective, like you still have to earn a living, right? So
Yeah.
how did that change, work, how did that impact your everyday life and work and
Yeah. That was huge, and I think that's something that, like I said, I mentioned my ex wasn't able to work. um I would say in the beginning she wasn't able to work. We can go on about that, but I think we'll talk about that a little bit later about where we could segue however you want to do it. But you know,
yeah, I
um,
think I know where you're going. I think that's a future episode, to be honest with you, because Christian, I'd love for you to be a frequent flyer on this
oh
show.
yeah,
In fact,
okay.
just a little foreshadowing what's coming up. We're going to have a show just with dads, and
Hmm.
it's going to be probably a live event, and it'll be a
Hmm.
call in, and there'll be
Hmm.
3 or 4 dads on here, and we'll pick a topic, and whoever wants to ask us a question live, we'll be able to do that, and I'd love for you to be a part of that.
Yeah. No, I'd love to. No, thank you for mentioning that for sure.
Because it's very complicated. Like the whole, it's just so very complicated. And I love the topic of today where you're just acknowledging all these emotions and you're going to feel them one way or the other. And, your strategy of how to dealing with it is a good one. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, thank you. I just wanted to follow up to you asking about the the whole, how do you handle the financial part of it, and
Right.
that piece. I mean, I guess we all do what we got to do. I mean, I had to work more. I was working a lot of hours. I took chances with businesses. Actually, being a business owner now is kind of funny. I was just I still consider myself a blue collar guy, at heart, it's going to be, but I never expected to be a business owner.
Right.
I did those things because of the love of my family and because of the love of my son. I had to figure out how to make more money. I had to be creative. I had to take risks. And I succeeded in some levels, and some things I failed, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But I took chances probably that I wouldn't have taken if it hadn't been for my son. I am not the person I am if my son was not in my life. I know that. I say that without hesitation. I had to grow in many different areas to be the man I needed to be for my family. So
that's great. Yeah, that's really great. That's good. Yeah. I mean, we and like you said at the beginning, we never know where our paths are going to take us. We have this vision of where life is going to be, and you're right. In a moment, just how you articulated earlier, it can all change. Yeah, and we're tested by how we react to those things. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and again, we've talked about, look, I'm saying all these things, and people are saying, "Gee, this sounds like a great story," but I'm on the other side of it. My marriage did not work.
Right.
It didn't last, and I have my own thoughts and opinions on some of why that happened, and I hope my stories can help others. But I think again, to go back to your question. I recognize what's the divorce rate for special needs families? It's like 80% or higher, right? It's really
through
high.
the roof. Yeah.
Yeah. So when I heard that, I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, it's already like 50% nationally on average. I'm like, I can't just be average. I got to be above average. I got to get really, really good and really be amazing for my family to make this work. And so
it's
I
a
think
lot of pressure too. A lot of pressure.
It's a lot of pressure. But it's part of the deal, and there's a lot of emotions, and like I said, our women, they have their own stuff too, and we have to be even more supportive for them, and
yep. Yeah, I mean, we can go there. I wanted to wait, but like Beth, she owned part of a salon here in town, and she had to sell half of the salon to care for Alex every day, because it's a full-time endeavor. Yeah. This was before school and all that. So yeah. And that left it all, to me. Very similar story with business owner. Some failed, some succeeded, and but yeah, and rose to the occasion. So one thing that Alex became the pinnacle, obviously, of the family, like the centerpiece of the family. And I've articulated this on previous episodes. And the prime focus for my wife, that maternal instinct, and that's the way it should be. I was fearful that would be it for her. Like, she is a very incredibly talented woman. And I would encourage her, hey, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? And she'd be like, no. Because I seen potentially that was going to be a problem down the road. And I'll just fast forward to now. Thank God, only she could realize that herself. Like, no one telling her could make her do that. But now she's starting to do art, teaching classes, and there's a salon for her here. We built a salon in the basement for her, so she's able to have that her time and get emotions out in different ways, like whether it's painting a picture or, cutting hair and just chit chatting with someone, so that's, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's okay to touch on that a little bit, Bill. I mean, honestly, I
Sure.
think, I think, again, I have a little bit of a different perspective because, I saw it with my ex-wife, but I've also, we separated slash divorced 4 years ago. We've been separated 4 years, divorced three. So, I've seen the other side of it where, I do date, I meet women, and I would say even for families um, without special needs children, I see a lot of women who, um, I'm kind of interested. I'm always interested in people's stories, and you see a lot of people who choose to be at home with the kids. They do it by choice, not out of necessity, and they lose themselves.
Mm,
And that's a big, big thing. And I can tell you, my personal opinion is that I don't. And there's nothing wrong with staying home with your children. Don't get me wrong, but I think if you do it for too long, you definitely lose yourself. I think you need to have your own separate identity. Your own. Like I said, you mentioned about your wife doing activity, or getting back into the workforce, doing some things. She's very talented. I think women need to have um, that 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 identity outside of the house as well. It's really important because what ends up happening is that they're going to resent you because you have it and they don't. And that's, you know, again, that's my perspective on a lot of what happened in my marriage. There was a lot of resentment there.
yep.
It didn't matter how great I was or how good I was. It was just, you know, I have it great, and I'm stuck at home. And it wasn't what I encouraged. I encouraged my ex to get out there and work, but she was fearful at home. And like I said, I don't want to badmouth her. That's not my intention. Just that's a little
Right.
bit of what had transpired with me. And
It's
I
it's
think,
a it's realism, right? And yeah, I even see that now. My thing is still guilt. I don't know if it's that old Catholic guilt, whatever, but like,
yeah, 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 yeah,
you know, like, yeah, like if I'm gonna go out and do something, it's like, Beth's home with Alex, and that was the MO
yeah,
for a long time. Like when Billy and Angela went to baseball and softball and scouts, like
hmm
but I would always offer, hey, do you want to do it? Would you like to go and do this? And it's like, no, you go, you go, you go. But I always felt guilty doing that, and that's something that just me personally in our situation that I was always very cognizant of the way she felt, and were there some resentments there on her end? I'm sure there were, I don't
hmm
know, 100%, but there probably was, but I think, we're pretty much over that now, but,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I think it's very interesting what you bring up. You're better than me because I'll tell you, I learned this a long time ago. I was very fortunate. I had some really good mentors and people that I was able to work with and just taught me a lot. And I think one of the things in my marriage that I was viewed as being selfish, because I learned a long time ago, and this is and someone actually helped validate this for me, and I kind of knew it anyway from books I read, but in terms of our value systems, it's really important that we put ourselves first, which is so hard when we have a special needs child, right? But I
absolutely.
always say 15% of my brain is for me. I got to get my head straight. I need my time, my exercise, and then 85% is for everybody else. But I just need that 15% just for me to get me right so I can be great for you. And
Yep.
this gentleman that I
Great
was very
advice,
fortunate
Christian.
to,
Great advice. Yep.
well, we all need it. And I think, I do feel as men, and I credit you, but I do feel as men, sometimes we're a little bit more of the selfish gender. It's easier for us to do that than it is for women.
I agree.
And, my friend, my great friend had told me a long time ago, he used to say these three things. He said, Christian, he said, um, love yourself, take care of yourself, enjoy yourself. He said, if you do those three things, you are going to be so happy. Love
Interesting.
yourself, take care of yourself, and enjoy yourself. And I always felt like that, but my ex used to make me feel a little guilty about doing that. But I was like, I was always happy. I was happy in my marriage. I was happy with the situation. She wasn't, but I can honestly say I was happy when I was married. I was happy when I was separated. I was happy, and I'm happy divorced because I always focused on those three things. No matter how hard things got, I focused on loving myself, taking care of myself, and enjoying myself. I love to have fun. It's so, so important to me. I don't like to take life so serious all the time because, you know, you could get that call. Like your son could have a seizure at any given moment. You know, I could be in the hospital for 45 days. You have to embrace life when things are going smooth. And,
Amen.
you know, and so I always put that first, and that may be perceived as selfish, but I've learned, and like I said, in the world I'm currently in, you know, a lot of people had to work on those things, and they realize that now. Like, if you're not doing it right now, you're going to realize it eventually. Just hopefully
Right.
you don't have to go through a divorce to realize it.
Right. Yeah. And that's sad that you had to do that. Now, how did that impact you know, that must have complicated things immensely.
The divorce?
Yeah.
Or, oh yeah, I mean, it's, you know, look, I'd say that I'm happy right now, but you know, it's, you know, at the time, you know, my family was everything. And my whole
Yeah.
existence was for my family.
Yeah.
You know, but it takes two people to be happy for it to work. And, you know, that's one of the things that I will say that, you know, I was going to mention, and I know I talked to you about this, that, you know, I don't think this is why my divorce happened, but, you know, I always used to do a value system. Like, I don't know if anybody has a value system, but I talk a lot about this in my webinars and seminars, you know, to actually write these things out. Like, you know, what's the most important thing to you, you know? And my first one is getting myself straight first. And then my second one was always my kids. You know, my kids came before my spouse. And I always thought that was like the right progression. And then, you know, number four was like my work. You know, number five was like, you know, my friends, my mom and dad. You know, it was, or actually my friends' mom and dad were before work, but just, you know, I kind of had it chronologically listed. And
Yep.
it's funny. I I I dated a woman that was tied closely to the church, and she used to tell me that, no, Christian, this church teaches you to put your spouse before your kids, because when your
Yep.
kids are gone, it's just you and your spouse. And I was like, you know, I never really thought about that, you know, and I knew some couples who had done that, but I don't know, your value system is your value system, but
Right.
I think that was really foreign to my ex and I, because we were just so focused on our kids and making sure they were healthy. And look, and we did things, you know, my marriage didn't end because I put my kids before my spouse. And we had a good relationship. We did things together, at least in my mind, we did. You know, I spent a lot of time with her. We had date nights and all that stuff. But, you know, I think understanding that the kids were going to be gone eventually and it was just going to be the two of us, like, we needed to keep that bond strong.
Right.
So I would say that's another thing for folks to consider, you know, making your marriage a priority, you know, and, you know, putting it ahead of your kids if you can, because if you don't, the whole thing is going to crumble. It did for
But
me.
that is easily said than done. Right.
It is. It is.
Especially when, you know, you have a child that needs special care, right? Like that's the kind of situation we're in.
Yeah.
Personally with me, I'm the one always saying, let's go on a date. Let's go on a date. I mean, we go on maybe one a month, maybe.
Oh,
And
wow.
to
Okay.
me, I'm telling her, we need it every week, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's what we're going through right now. And who gets cranky about it is me. Like that.
Yeah.
I mean, just to tell you
Absolutely.
my
Yeah.
little
Yeah.
personal life, that right now it's me. And I give her a hard time
I
about
get
it.
it.
And we're like, oh, well, this person's not trained to watch Alex, and this person, because with Alex, um, seizures can be very dangerous with Alex, right? Very dangerous.
Yeah.
So you just can't ask, you know, Sally Sue down the road to watch Alex
No.
for a few hours. So it's a little
Sure.
complicated. Yeah.
Do you have nursing, any assistance for your son?
We have like a caregiver, and they just reduced the hours. And that
Okay.
I tell you, I could talk an hour about that.
Yeah.
The people who do the evaluation here in Massachusetts really don't leverage common sense, and
Hmm.
they don't look to the real side of things. Everything's a number. Like, oh, can he feed himself? Yes. Physically, he can raise a spoon to his mouth, but if we're not on him telling him to eat, he'd never eat. So they don't look at that part of it. So yeah, I
Okay.
think we get like 10 hours a week maybe, but that we use that for
Okay.
Beth, so that she
Yeah.
can without, caring for Alex can go paint a picture or go
Yeah.
whatever, do whatever she's so that's the way we
Yeah.
leverage that. Sometimes for dates
Sure.
though, once in a great while. And then Angela, she's our oldest. She's actually right now, as we record this podcast, she's signing a lease for a new apartment. So she's going to be out of the house, but she's trained to watch Al, obviously. And, but, we don't want to ask her every week, hey, watch out. It's very complicated. It's very complicated.
Yeah. Well, and I know not everybody has the discretionary income. I mean, I was fortunate, before COVID, my businesses really got affected, but, I would put money aside for, like a special care for Ryan and so we had for us, we actually had that money put aside, or I did, to pay someone. I could have an aide watch Ryan. Really, he needed a nurse, more for an emergency situation, but so that we could go out. Because I felt like that was important. Like I said, that's not everybody has that discretionary income. But I do think it's hard. Yeah. How do you be creative like that? Do you do, candlelight dinners at home?
That's one of my buddies. That's what they do. So there are ways around it. There's creative ways.
Yeah. Movies, do movie night in our home, it's this, just to create that bond and because that connection is so important. And that was ultimately, that's where my marriage, blew up was, my ex, she just didn't feel connected to me.
Right.
And, and I was aware of some of the challenges. I did everything I felt like I could to keep things going. But, she just didn't feel the connection. So, it's sad, but,
it is sad.
so what else can you do? But,
right.
But I think it's important to keep
forward.
Look
forward.
Yeah. But I also think, and just, for any women listening to the podcast, if they listen to this, I would say, I think I mentioned to you, I was fortunate. I was able to get out for date nights. But, if you're getting out for date nights, we used to have cameras in my son's room, and she'd be looking at the nurses, and it was she was never really present. It's I set up the situation to be there, and, it wasn't enjoyed, and then I remember,
right.
Again, not to bash her, but I'm just saying things that I think I remember our last vacation, we used to have these amazing vacations and have so much fun. And, she would just want to relax. She just wanted to relax. And this is my time to relax. I'm no, this is your time to connect with your husband, and, but she just needed to relax. So, anyway, that's just kind of what happened with us.
Oh, video kind of cut out there.
Yep. I'm sorry. Just one sec.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah. It's not, it's very complicated. A lot of moving parts to keep the fires of that marriage going for sure. And we don't even have it all figured out, but at least with us, we've identified, and here's part of it. And you tell me if you agree, Christian. Communication is absolutely everything. I communicate things to my wife that probably normal husbands won't. And she's shocked by some things I say, but to me, I got to get it out. Cause I was one of those people, Christian, when I was younger, I kept it all in.
Okay.
And now I've learned through age you have to communicate. And I think that's part of, the success of our marriage is that I've openly communicated with her. And she has with me to some extent too. So it's communication to me is a large part of it. Honest communication.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think communication is definitely key. I kind of keep things simplistic too, Bill. I think a lot of times, I'm I don't know, man. I look at my son and he's so happy, and hopefully Alex is happy too, right? When he smiles, you smile, right? It's the same thing with Ryan and me, and I just kind of I look at it, I'm are you familiar with the 5 love languages?
No.
It's a dating thing. I guarantee if the women that listen to this podcast probably know about the love languages. It's basically like everybody communicates love in different ways. But I won't go over all five, but I'll tell you the two main ones what I think are kind of the main ones that we all need. Because I look at my son and my son's so happy. Like he doesn't get all the love languages because he just doesn't comprehend them,
Right.
Like there's like one of the love languages is acts of service, like where somebody shows love by doing things for you. Taking care of Ryan is showing love for him. That's just some way that some people naturally do that. But I will tell you, the natural love languages for my son are affection. Okay. So I am very affectionate with my son. I'm in there, I'm hugging him, loving him, having him feel my beard and he's just like laughing and he like responds so well to that. So he gets affection and touch, like touch is a love language. So he understands that. And the other thing is quality time. When I spend time with him, he understands that. So that's another love language. So, why is my son so happy? Because he feels loved. And I think, to keep relationships on a real simplistic level. And I, like I said, I've been through this with a lot of people, and it's like, life isn't that hard. Usually when I get upset with someone, it's because I'm not feeling loved. If they get upset with me, they're not feeling loved. So we have to figure out how to show love so the person feels it. And like I said, I look at my son and, gee, this kid's got the toughest, deck of cards you can find, right? I mean, relatively speaking, you know what I mean? But,
Yeah.
but he's so happy. And why is he happy? Because he feels loved. He feels loved.
Yeah.
And we're no different, man. We're no different.
I agree.
I think it's sometimes with our partners, it's just like, if they're not happy, it's because they're not feeling loved by us. And it's like, what do I need to do to make sure you know how much I love you? Because I'm crazy about
Yep.
you. Like that's the message that we need to communicate, even if we have children with special needs. It's like,
I agree. Yeah, no, that's
yeah.
good. So so part of this is Christian's going to give me a list of books that he's read, and we'll put that in the show notes too. Yeah, because I'm a huge book reader. I do it, in my industry. I'm at least 2 or 3 books going at a time. But yeah, book reading. Cool. I tell you, that's if you don't read books, you should, because you should work on yourself as much as you can, and that's a great way to do it, is reading books. And
hey, I'll share this with you, Bill. You might find this funny, but like I don't know, like this is kind of a funny thing, but I have a lot of female clients that I work with, and a lot of women are like part of book clubs, and I always said, like, I want to be part of a book club. Like I want to like do like a book club for guys. Like I know that's like a macho or whatever, but let's do it, man. Like a couple, like that'll be like our outlet. Like I like stuff like that. I totally agree. So good.
So where are you at now? So how's Ryan doing? How's your other son doing? And what's the snapshot of life now?
Yeah, I mean, the snapshot of life is awesome, man. I mean, I get my son, 45% of the time. So, he's here. My house is fully handicap accessible. The home that I'm in is the home that he grew up in. My oldest son, he's living with me full time, although he's about to move. And I have my 23-year-old nephew lives with me because he goes to school here in Hartford. Mm-hmm. So I have a house full, man. So
that's good. House full is good. That's a good thing.
Yeah,
a lot of helping hands, correct?
Yeah. And I get regular nursing every day when I have my son. So his nurse Shaquana is awesome. We've had some amazing nurses over the years. I'm really blessed, man. I have good balance in my life. COVID hurt my business a little bit. I'm not gonna lie, but doing the best I can. Unfortunately, my relationship with my ex isn't where I would like it. That's another side of it. It's not what I wanted, but that happens sometimes. But I focus to be around people who want to be around me, and just keeping the toxicity out of my life. That's just how it works for me. And again, I'm not bad mouthing my ex. That's not my intention. I'm just saying, for me, I got to be around people who, love and appreciate me. And that's kind of what I do. And, life's better for it, man, and I love to network, I love networking. I love that you and I met. I love meeting new people. Reaching out and connecting with others we all need that.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, life is good, man. I mean, it's it's as good as it's gonna be for now, but I know that can change, very quickly. I'm fully aware of that. So I am gonna enjoy every moment I can while I can right now, and I'll be ready for the tough part when it
Whatever
comes,
comes
if
your
it comes.
way. Yeah. Yeah.
You
And
know.
we know, as parents of our special little heroes, we always have that looming in the back of our brain, right?
Yeah.
You know, and that can be tough for some people, but I think your perspective is very good. And I think, I know I learned a little bit from it, and I'm sure people listening learned from that as well. And that's what this podcast was for, is to hear stories and to help change your perspective. And Christian, I think you've effectively have done that today for sure. So
Thanks, man. I
um,
want to I just want to do a little plug. So, I
oh,
talk
please
about all
do.
these things.
Yep.
Yeah. So, I was talking about, loving your kids and, trying to find new things. And, in Connecticut, we're so blessed. We have this gem of a beach, specifically for families with disabilities. And we had some great weather last weekend. And so I was able to go down there with my son. It's a place called Camp Harkness. It's really a great thing that the state of Connecticut did. I'm sure you found those gems for your son too.
So
But going,
with your
yeah.
permission, can I post that picture that you posted of your son?
Oh, absolutely, definitely, absolutely, all day.
So here
Yep.
it is here. There's Christian and yeah, there's Ryan enjoying that beach. So yeah,
Yeah.
I seen that picture and my heart just melted. So before we came on, I kind of snagged that and yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, thanks for
great.
sharing that. No, like I said, I mean, doing something simple like going to the beach with your kid and having like a quote unquote normal day is like
Yep.
so precious. And here's the thing, you know, my ex and I, we knew about that place. We never went. I've only started taking Ryan in the last few years. Like,
Mm,
Um, so if you work together and you discover these things, there's some really great things that you can find out there that and it doesn't have to be a lot of different things. It could be habitual things, or, just things that kind of become routine or
sure.
for you, and that's wonderful
Absolutely. Yeah,
too.
we try to do that with Alex, but again, Alex has those triggers, so it's difficult. And sometimes,
Yeah.
we talked about fear. Sometimes you're choked by your own fear that you don't do anything.
Yeah, yeah, no,
Yeah.
and again, that's a tough thing. I know, with my ex, she was very fearful of things,
Yeah.
I'm probably a little bit more of a risk taker, but it's finding that balance. Maybe that might have been a trigger for you. I don't know. So,
No, that I mean, I'm the guy that pushes the envelope a little bit, pushes Alex just a little bit. Yeah. And
yeah,
half the time it ends with a seizure, but you know what? If he had fun, if he had that experience and remembers it after, I mean, you don't push it recklessly, but
no,
um,
no, I
yeah,
understand. I push the envelope with my son. There's no question. But look, if you let the kids stay up a little bit past bedtime, the kid doesn't like to stay up a little bit later.
that's right.
They like it.
Yeah,
They know they know they were doing something out of the ordinary. It's good for them. It's
absolutely.
good for us. So.
Yep. Yep. All right, Christian. So how do people, so, you mentioned your business. So how do people get a hold of you? Like if they're interested in hearing more from you and the speaking engagement. So plug that a little bit if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. I hadn't thought about that, but no, I appreciate you offering that. So, yeah, so I mean, reach out to me. My website is www.premierfitnesscoaching.com. Premier is Premier. So premierfitnesscoaching.com.
And we'll put that in the
Um,
show notes. So, yep. So those that
yeah,
are listening or, we're going to put everything in the show notes. So go ahead. Yep. Sorry.
yeah, yeah. People I'm on Facebook. You can, friend request me at Christian Silva, message me there. My contact information is on my website. I'm on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn, if you want to link up with me for business purposes. And did a little bit with TikTok, but I got to get a little better at that stuff. So I think that's for
There's
the
only
kids.
so much time to get in the social. Believe me, I know all about that. It takes a lot of time. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, but yeah, no, thank you for that, and thank you so much for today, Bill. This was really great. I hope I hope this helps some people for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Christian, thanks a lot. So as always, the website is up now. So a matterofperspective.org. And if you want to call in and be a guest, or know someone who wants to be a guest, or have suggestions, right? This is a growing channel. There's the number there. It's 508-677-7219. I have to keep in mind that people are listening on Spotify and on Apple. So that's that. And you can email me at bdalpy@comcast.net. So, Christian, I really do appreciate it, and I look forward to having you on for more episodes.
Absolutely.
All right. God bless. Take care.
God bless, Bill. Thanks so much. Have a great day.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.